Hey everybody, Ranjan here, bringing yet another StarCraft commentary. I apologize that I continue this a little bit late. I was busy yesterday when I was going to continue this. I was busy with a side project that me and Nuke did. A kind of a podcast, short podcast type program called Bunker Chats. The first episode of that is up on his channel, so I highly recommend you check that out. We chat a little bit there about the OSL, and, you know, it's the usual fare. So yeah, done with that. We move on to the second match of the Saga MSL Group C. First match has already been played. Go watch that, guys. And here we're gonna have Tempest against Fantasy. Tempest is an up-and-coming Zerg that's really kind of showed his stuff lately. He was in the OSL last season, and he wasn't wonderful, but he still played pretty decently. I believe he got into the round of 8, either in the round of 16 or in the round of 8, but all in all, not too shabby. And this season, he's in the MSL, and if I remember correctly, he played an insanely good game in the qualifiers, where he microed a Dragoon when he countered some sort of cheese build, microed a Dragoon and got him 32 kills to a single Dragoon. So effectively, I don't remember who he played against. I believe it was against mine, but I'm not sure. You can correct me on that. Fantasy is the guy that managed to get second place in the OSL last season, the Incruit OSL. We're going to see how he manages in the MSL this season. He is a seed in the OSL as well, so he's going to be in the round of 16 there. We're going to see how he does. I definitely think he has a chance to move out of this group. He is surprisingly, despite his specialization as a TVT player, his best matchup at the moment is against Protoss at just over 55%. So we're going to see how he manages here against Tempest. 4, 3, 2, 1, go! Right, so let's get this shit on the road. Go, 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 go! It's going to be on Destination. We're going to have in pink or violet, whatever that is, at the 11 o'clock we're going to have as the Terran. We're going to have Fantasy. And on the bottom, at the 5 o'clock, we're going to have in green the Protoss Tempest. Tempest is a fairly new player, so he has not played that many games. All of his stats are just bordering at 50% or just under 50%. His best matchup, though, is against Terran, I believe. If I'm wrong, I ask people to correct me, because I could be wrong. Things happen. But yeah, this is a Destination. This is a somewhat Protoss-favored map in PvT. Despite the bridges that the Terrans can use to their advantage to siege their tanks pretty well and get decent positioning, the Protoss have been able to use the lack of maneuverability on this map to their own advantage, because, you know, a Terran doesn't have maneuverability at the start already, and you take that away, they're not going to get any more maneuverability, you know, that's for sure. Protoss need maneuverability, but on this map they can definitely still do something funky, and seems to be a somewhat early SCV, maybe it's just going out checking out for some siege, but I'm not seeing any funky stuff coming anyway. Tempest has simply just set down his gateway, nothing from here. Fantasy might have thought of something funky, just maybe looking for cheese, because Tempest is, you know, not one of the best players, but he's still promising, fairly. I see that SCV is still running around, just figuring something to do. Maybe he's just being very thoughtful, just making sure there's nothing funky going on anywhere around him, and he's going to set up that barracks to try to block off his ramp. Meanwhile, early gas from Tempest. That's fairly early gas. We're going to see quick tech build. It might even go for one base tech. I'm not so sure about that. SCV coming out again. This is probably going to be the scouting SCV finally been sent down. Tempest does not send out a scout. Meanwhile, the simulator now up for him, and the cybernetic score also going, and he instantly is setting 3 probes actually to mine gas. So he's definitely going to start mining gas right away. So he's going to go for quick tech. Probably going to get a range upgrade from the cybernetic score for his goons to start off with, and only going to see what it goes beyond that. And the polls, hey, the polls all say, for the most part, that everybody thinks Fantasy is going to win, and I think that's a fairly good assumption. Fantasy is the player to beat here. His scouting SV just now getting inside of Tempest's base, and the Zealot is going to pop out just to meet it, and we're going to see whether he's going to try to put on any early pressure with the Zealot. He's completely ignoring the SCV with it, probably either going to block his own ramp, or possibly going to set it down to try to do some harassment. And that actually could be successful because I don't know if the wall should be ready at this point, and there's a factory going down for Fantasy meanwhile, so I don't think the Zealot's actually going to be able to do any real damage, but maybe you'll be lucky and manage to get a scout. I'm going to see, although I'm not sure. I think Fantasy's ramp is blocked off by this point, but they don't show. Subnautics Core is spinning, and interesting enough, there's scouting ACV Manor pylon there by a probe. Oh, that's brilliant there by Fantasy. He was needed to plant down a pylon anyway, and might as well Manor pylon an SCV, and then SCV is now going to get killed. So if there is any hit and take, that's going to be spotted. So okay, no block on the ramp, but that Zealot's not going to be able to get up with those 2 Marines and SCV's blocking. That Zealot's going to be forced back. Meanwhile, scouting SCV of Fantasy has been killed, but still no scouting from Tempest. Tempest scouting very late. Subnautics Core is in fact spinning. I think I mentioned that so far. And Dragoon is out, so they're going to see Goon range coming up pretty soon. The Zealot not going to engage those 3 Marines, so there's going to be no early scout. Barracks being floated, and Machine Shop coming up for the factory. We're going to see if he plants down a second factory pretty soon or not. Whether they're going to go for a 2-fact builder, try to expand instead, get some forces out there, and maybe even push with a tank and a few Marines. Robotics facility coming up meanwhile for Tempest, so we're gonna see Reavers most likely. I think he should go for an observatory first though, because he hasn't been able to get a scout in, and he definitely needs to get a scout to see what Fantasy is up to. So I think an observatory first here would be the smart move actually. Command Center meanwhile coming up for Fantasy, so he's definitely thinking of expanding off of that 1 factory. He should have tanks out fairly soon. Maybe you'll even think of going Vultures, but I think with those Dragoons out there, those Vultures are going to be completely blocked off. There's a Dragoon on 1 bridge each, and that SCV is now going to see those Dragoons, definitely not going to be able to get a scout. So Fantasy definitely doesn't know that this robotics facility is going up. He hasn't been able to get a scout in, and he doesn't have scan, has no academies so far, just getting supply depots, and SCV's running around, and still that Zealot also running around. Ooh, SCV almost gets killed. Could actually get killed while he's running onto his base. Marines and a tank, meanwhile, at the natural of Fantasies, and Tempest also using this opportunity to expand. So it is indeed observatory first. I'm going to see Observer out there. Should see, I don't know if you're going to go for robotic support first or go for a second gateway first, but he definitely used minerals first to expand. Barracks floating around there, and CC almost ready. 2 tanks and a group of Marines meanwhile moving out. Going to try to put on some early pressure. Armory also coming up now for Fantasy, so he's going to try to get some early upgrades and possibly get some Goliaths out there just in case. It'd be a good idea if he can get a decently balanced army. Observer should be up pretty soon for him. Probe running around, gonna try to spot those incoming forces, but apparently I think those Marines actually saw that probe. Probe is definitely gonna see those forces there. Marines and tanks are gonna push in downward now, maybe not. Not sure whether you should be putting on pressure or not. Observer meanwhile up for Tempest, and Tempest definitely has enough forces meanwhile to counter this. He has 2 gateways, second gateway on the way. I don't see a robotic support as of yet, so if there's gonna be Reaver harass, it's definitely not gonna come right away. Meanwhile, Barracks there moving downwards on the map. Maybe that's to spot either flying units or simply to try to get off a scout. Engineer Bay also up, so we're going to see turrets bringing down soon. Machine Shop upgrading. I don't know if that's Siege. I'm not sure if Siege is ready yet or not. I don't know at what time he started upgrading that. Meanwhile, robotic support almost ready, so we're going to see Reavers pretty soon. The first Observer has gotten out there, so Shuttle and Reaver right after that. That Observer is still running around. I don't know if he's run that inside the base yet or not. He definitely should do that. There are no turrets, nothing really to kill that Observer, so he should feel safe. And wow, another expansion from Tempest. Tempest taking his chance to expand again, so he should be very careful. He could be overextending himself a little bit here. I just hope this doesn't turn out to bite him. Meanwhile, Fantasy going for a second factory, so he's definitely not going to push here. And also, meanwhile, mining out the minerals at the back of his base, so he's probably possibly thinking of expanding as well, trying to open up some ways. Got to be careful so he doesn't get, flanked into his main due to this. Tempest getting down his 3rd expansion and blocking off pretty well with those pylons. Haven't seen a forge for him though, so the cannons are not going to be up yet, and the upgrades probably not up yet. First Reaver meanwhile is on the way. I don't see a shuttle though, so he could have built Reaver first, then gone for a shuttle just for defensive purposes, just in case. Okay, never mind. The shuttle is already out there. What was I thinking? Shuttle first, Reaver second. That's standard. Vultures meanwhile running everywhere for Fantasies. Fantasy pretty good in his Vulture use overall, not just as an aggressive force, but also as a kind of a scouting, harassing force. Zealots inside of the shuttle alongside Reavers. Going to see what we'll be able to do. Those Vultures should be able to spot it, though, on the way. And also Dragoon's moving upwards, so we can see if Tempest is going to try to put on some early pressure alongside her harassment. Vultures with mines everywhere, though. And turrets and tanks also ready in the natural, as well as, I think, inside the main for the drop. There are turrets around, definitely.